This story involves Apple, one of the world's largest tech companies. It also involves former President Donald Trump and his direct words. He reportedly spoke to Apple's CEO, Tim Cook, with a clear message. The message was quite unexpected and sparked considerable debate. Trump stated he did not want Apple building a large office in India. This was not a quiet behind-the-scenes suggestion. It was a public declaration, catching many industry watchers by surprise. The implications of such a statement were immediately a hot topic, a former US president attempting to steer a major company's global strategy. This set the stage for a significant discussion on business and politics. So, why did former President Trump deliver this pointed message to Apple? His reasoning ties directly to a core policy he has long championed. This policy is widely known by the phrase "America First." The central idea behind this approach is to prioritize American interests. Specifically, in an economic context, this means keeping jobs within the United States. It also means actively working to boost manufacturing on American soil. Mr. Trump has consistently advocated for this economic nationalism. He believes this approach strengthens the U.S. economy significantly, and importantly, creates more opportunities for American workers. This was the fundamental driving force behind his advice to Tim Cook. This desire to bring manufacturing and jobs back home is not a new theme for Trump. It has been a consistent cornerstone of his economic platform for years. He views companies moving their production facilities overseas as a net loss for America. He sees it as a loss of valuable jobs, a weakening of domestic industry, and ultimately, a reduction in America's overall economic strength. His pointed comments to Apple fit squarely into this larger established picture. It's also a reflection of the broader global competition, a complex power play. Countries like China and India are rapidly emerging as formidable tech hubs. Trump's stance clearly reflects a pushback against this ongoing global shift. He wants the United States to maintain its dominant position in key sectors. The timing of these remarks from the former president is also quite noteworthy. Trump made these statements publicly, sometime after July of 2023. This means his intervention occurred during a period of intense global economic shifts. Apple itself was already making significant strategic moves in India at that time. By making his advice or perhaps directive public, Trump amplified the pressure. It wasn't a private conversation between a former leader and a corporate CEO. Instead, it was a declaration made for all the world to hear and consider. This, of course, put Apple in a very public and undeniably delicate position. Navigating complex business strategy under such direct political scrutiny is challenging. The world was and is watching closely how Apple might respond to this. Despite this strong political rhetoric, Apple's expansion plans in India were already well underway. Over the past 5 years, India has steadily become very important for Apple. It is now a significant manufacturing hub for the global tech giant. Consider the reported numbers from the last financial year alone. Apple's assembly lines located in India produced smartphones worth an estimated $22 billion. That is a massive figure, clearly showing a serious and growing commitment. Indeed, iPhone production in India reportedly increased by a staggering 60% year-over-year. This significant expansion is being conducted at plants run by key partners. These include facilities operated by Foxconn Technology Group and a Tata Group-run plant. Apple is clearly investing heavily in its Indian manufacturing capabilities. But why is Apple, a quintessential American company, making this major shift towards India? The core strategy behind this move is largely about supply chain diversification. For many years, Apple heavily relied on China for the bulk of its manufacturing needs. However, several emerging factors made this deep reliance increasingly risky. Ongoing and often escalating geopolitical tensions between the US and China are a key concern. The widespread disruptions caused by the global coronavirus pandemic also played a significant role. These major events starkly highlighted the vulnerability of a geographically concentrated supply chain. Consequently, Apple began a concerted effort to look for viable alternatives, and India emerged. This move is widely seen as a strategic imperative for Apple's long-term stability. Reducing its dependence on any single country is now a clear business priority. Former President Trump's response to Apple's India strategy was not limited to just advice. He also issued what many perceive as a significant and direct threat. He explicitly warned Apple about the possibility of substantial new tariffs. Specifically, he mentioned a potential 25% tariff on all of Apple's products. This hefty tariff, he suggested, would apply if Apple proceeded with plans. plans to manufacture iPhones in India instead of shifting that production back to the United States. He made this impactful statement very clearly and publicly via a post on Truth Social. This represents a serious escalation of pressure being placed on the company. It is a direct financial threat closely tied to Apple's global manufacturing decisions. The message from Trump was unmistakable. Build products in America or face consequences. What would happen if such a sweeping 25% tariff were actually imposed on Apple? The potential consequences could be far-reaching, especially for American consumers. Beloved Apple products, like the iconic iPhone, would likely become much more expensive. This significant price increase would hit US customers directly in their wallets. Higher prices could, in turn, logically lead to reduced demand for Apple products. This might then harm Apple's currently strong market share within the United States. It's an incredibly delicate balance for the company to try and maintain. While some Trump-era tariffs are already in place, Apple has secured certain exemptions. But these crucial exemptions are often described by officials as being time-sensitive. The looming threat of new, much broader tariffs creates major operational uncertainty. This kind of direct intervention from a prominent political figure puts Apple in a tough spot. It starkly highlights the immense political pressure that US tech companies can unexpectedly face. Decisions about where to build products are clearly not just straightforward business choices anymore. They are increasingly becoming tangled with national politics and overarching economic policies. Trump's pronounced stance could significantly affect Apple's existing operations in the US. It forces the company to weigh political risks much more heavily in its calculations. Their entire global supply chain strategy is now under a new kind of scrutiny. How Apple chooses to navigate this considerable pressure will be very closely watched by many. It also serves as a clear signal to other multinational corporations around the world. The America First agenda, if pursued vigorously, might reshape global business practices. The specific location of a company's manufacturing plants can often influence its research and development. Many companies sometimes prefer to have their R&D facilities close to their production centers. This geographical synergy can potentially lead to faster innovation and more efficient problem-solving. If Apple is indeed pressured to manufacture more of its products in the US, it might also consequently impact where it decides to invest in future R&D activities. Alternatively, if it expands R&D operations in India alongside manufacturing, that could draw criticism. These are incredibly complex decisions with significant long-term strategic consequences for any company. Continuous innovation is absolutely key to Apple's sustained global success. Any potential disruption to its carefully cultivated R&D ecosystem is a serious concern. The company must skillfully balance efficiency, innovation, and pressing political demands. All this political turbulence and the resulting uncertainty can make investors understandably nervous. Strong investor confidence is absolutely crucial for a publicly traded company of Apple's scale. Uncertainty about future tariffs or major shifts in manufacturing locations is generally not ideal. It can often lead to increased volatility in the company's valuable stock price. Investors, by their nature, tend to look for stability and clear, robust long-term strategies. When prominent political figures publicly target a specific company, it inherently creates risk. This perceived risk might then be priced into the company's stock by the market. Apple's leadership team has the challenging task of reassuring its investors. They need to clearly demonstrate that they can manage these complex geopolitical challenges effectively. The stakes are incredibly high for one of the world's most valuable and visible companies. It is also important to remember that Apple currently benefits from some existing tariff exemptions. These exemptions effectively shield some of its products from certain Trump-era tariffs still in effect. However, these vital reprieves are often described by trade officials as being time-sensitive. This terminology implies that they could potentially be revoked, adding another layer of uncertainty. The threat of future, possibly more extensive tariffs is therefore very real for Apple. Meanwhile, it's clear that not everyone in the US agrees with Trump's tariff strategy. For instance, California's Attorney General Rob Bonta has publicly criticized these threats. He characterized them as chaotic and potentially harmful to California's significant economy. Bonta even suggested that California might be prepared to support legal challenges against such tariffs. This demonstrates the domestic political divisions over these contentious trade policies. This entire complex situation with Apple, Trump, and India unfolds against a backdrop of shifting global power. Countries like China and increasingly India are rapidly growing as influential tech centers. They are no longer viewed merely as markets for Western goods. They are innovation hubs. They are also becoming major manufacturing centers for advanced technology. This dynamic creates new opportunities but also intense competition on a worldwide scale. China has long been referred to as the world's factory, especially for consumer electronics. Now, India is aggressively positioning itself as a strong and viable alternative. This rise of new tech powers presents both significant opportunities and complex challenges for US companies. Apple, as a global leader, is right in the middle of this profound global transformation. The competition for ultimate tech dominance is fierce, multifaceted, and constantly evolving. American tech companies, with Apple being a prime example, are increasingly caught in the crossfire. They must skillfully navigate complex and often contradictory pressures from multiple directions. There is considerable pressure from elements within the US government to keep jobs at home. Simultaneously, there are pressures and incentives from host countries offering benefits for investment. And then, there are the ever-present geopolitical tensions that can shift without warning. Shifting international alliances and unpredictable trade policies create a volatile business environment. One day a particular country might be viewed as a strategic partner, the next a rival. This makes effective long-term strategic planning incredibly difficult for global corporations. Companies need to be exceptionally agile and resilient to survive and thrive in this climate. The global playing field for technology and manufacturing is constantly being redrawn. Adding another intricate layer to this already complex issue are claims about international trade practices. Former President Trump, for example, has accused India of maintaining high tariff barriers. He argued that these Indian tariffs make it difficult for American products to compete fairly. He even publicly claimed that India had offered to drop all tariffs on US goods. A zero-tariff offer, as he specifically put it, which would have been a major concession. However, this particular claim has not been independently verified by neutral sources. Indeed, Indian officials and sources have, in fact, publicly dismissed this assertion. Mr. Trump also referenced using trade as a powerful tool for leverage in diplomatic negotiations. For instance, he suggested it could help broker a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. This illustrates just how deeply trade, national politics, and international diplomacy are intertwined. Ultimately, decisions like Apple's choice of where to manufacture its products have huge implications. These decisions do not just affect one company or the economy of one single country. They have the potential to significantly reshape the balance of global technological power. If more high-tech manufacturing shifts from China to India, or perhaps back to the US, that fundamentally changes economic dependencies, supply chains, and strategic national advantages. Apple currently finds itself at a critical juncture, facing what appears to be a major dilemma. Should it prioritize further diversifying its supply chain in rapidly growing places like India? Or should it perhaps heed the strong political calls to bring more manufacturing back to the US? There are compelling arguments and significant potential downsides on both sides of this choice. What do you think Apple should do in this high-stakes global game of technology and power? The choices made by such influential companies today will undoubtedly define the tech landscape for years to come.